If you're a woman in leadership or thinking about stepping into it, this is a conversation that is absolutely non-negotiable. I'm talking to Carla Cohen, and we're diving deep in her book, The Radiant Revolution, The Rise of Feminine Wisdom and the Future of Leadership. It's the kind of book that you read once, and then you read it again. And then you start making highlights in the book. And then you read it again. Because every time you pick this book up, you will find something new. So if you're serious about your leadership, this is where to start. Carla takes you through her own burnout, her body shutting down in Hollywood, and how she discovered the truth. The problem was never her. It was the system itself. It's broken and it's contaminated. In this conversation, you will learn the exact strategies Carla teaches her clients to stop burnout, to lead from your power instead of exhaustion, and to recognize what needs to change so you can actually change it. This is a very meaningful conversation for anyone to stop shrinking and to start leading differently. And please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. It's just one click at a button, and you're helping us create valuable conversations for the world to share. Let's welcome Carla Cohen. Carla, your book is really amazing. This is not, for me, an ordinary book. And I definitely know that when, the readers of the book, the listeners and the viewers of this podcast, after you've read it, you're going to have exactly the same feeling about it. And actually, this is a book that you can read over and over again. Even I suggest, because I am someone that makes notes and highlights, I suggest that for anyone that reads the book, you should read it and then read it again and then start highlighting and then read it again, because this is a book. It's a teachable book. It's a book where we can all learn from and grow. So, Carla, really, thank you so much for writing this book, because it's incredible. Really, it's incredible.
Well, thank you so much for the kind words, and that feedback means the world to me. It really does, because, as a writer, I think I wrestled with, I just wanted to the other thing is I really wanted to keep it short, and concise, because so many books are like a manuscript, and I didn't want to have people to feel like they have to read it all day to get the point, I think, so that feedback means so much to me. And I love that you feel that it's so unique compared to other leadership books out there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's about leadership, but it's also about leadership that really needs to shift. Actually, it's a book that teaches you skill set. And that is what I love.
Yeah, the idea was that it would be interactive so that you would sit down and reflect and actually start to take action, and simple steps, right? I can get more complicated, and I do, with my clients sometimes, because I don't talk about it too much in the book, a little bit, but, really one of the things that throws so many leaders off, especially women, because we are we're so open in a lot of ways to, getting information from all these different places, is having our systems, our internal bodily system set up in a way where we are not dysregulated, where our central nervous system is working at a place so that we can feel centered and we're not feeling stressed out. When I'm working with clients, there are some techniques in the book, and there are also techniques that I teach my clients privately to help them regulate the central nervous system so that they can be more centered when they're up there leading. Because this is all about presence. A lot of the book is, you've read it, so you understand that. It's like, how do you embody your message? And the way that you do that is you start to get in touch with your body.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like brains in a jar.
I love the way you rephrase that, brains in a jar. I really love it. How did you But because I'm curious about this, how did you go from where you came to where you are now? Explain a little bit what your journey was.
I'm just going to go back to working in Hollywood. I worked in Hollywood many years ago. I was what they call a development executive, and I love my job. Development executives develop the stories. We take the scripts, the books, and I would sometimes package those with amazing talent, and then I would turn around and sell that all to a studio to turn it into a movie or a TV show. And I love my work, and I loved my boss. He was the perfect. I finally had found, I thought, my dream job, and 6 months in, they fired him. And they didn't ask me. They just expected me to step up and take over his job and do what I was already doing. I already had a very large staff of readers underneath me and a pretty intense workload. But it was a promotion, right? Even though it wasn't maybe my ideal way to have it happen, because it was somebody I really liked. I didn't want him out. So I stepped up to do the work, and I remember, what I wanted at the time was I wanted more salary, I wanted a better title, and there was a lot of back and forth. And finally, I think I started to fill up moving boxes, and that's when they took me seriously. And when I threatened to actually leave, and they came back and offered me a bump in title and a bump in my salary, but not even close to what my boss was making, even though I was doing his job and mine. So the way that I internalized that battle of trying to get what I felt I was worth, when they didn't say yes right away or didn't give me what I wanted, a part of me took that in as thinking I was not good enough. And so I worked really, really hard to prove myself. So my 40-hour work week went to a 70-hour work week. It was exhausting. I mean, I loved what I was doing, but it was exhausting. So I had no time off. And I worked on weekends, and I didn't do self-care. I wasn't really thinking about any of those things at that time. I wasn't really in touch with my emotions, very, very, unless they were extreme, but not on a settle level. And so I ended up in bed, and my body quit. So I had to, that's the story. And I had an elevated white blood cell count that was off the charts, and I had a constant fever, and I was feeling like fuzzy in my brain. Now we call it brain fog, but at the time we didn't have a word for it. And then after a lot of exhaustive testing and basically having to go home, and the doctors telling me to go home and sleep because they couldn't figure out what was going on, they called me one day and said, well, here, we think you're depressed, and gave me antidepressants. And I was like, well, I wasn't depressed until you basically told me that you're giving up on me. Then I got depressed. So because it was the first time a doctor or a parent couldn't solve my problem, or me, right? So then I took one pill, and I felt horrible. It was like every piece of strength drained out of my body. And I knew I threw the rest of the bottles out right then and there. And I knew that was not going to be it for me. There's some little voice, there's got to be another way. That's what I remember thinking. And so what started the turnaround for me was transcendental. On a day that I was feeling a little better, I got invited to a lecture on transcendental meditation. I actually got to participate in it, and all of a sudden I felt like something really, really changed. Like I felt like somebody swept out my insides. And that was the beginning of me becoming aware of energy, really in a more conscious way, and my thoughts, recognizing, I'm not saying I got it right away, but over, I've never stopped meditating since that day. That was over 45 years ago. I've never missed, but that was the very beginning of me opening up. And then from there, I started to meet healers and shaman. I'm shortening the story, of course, that, in pursuit of trying to heal myself, I was getting treated by these people, but also learning from them. And I apprenticed with all these different people. And what I learned as a result of my work to heal myself was that our unprocessed emotions that we don't even recognize are actually sensations in our body. And we don't necessarily see a sensation as an emotion, but it truly is. So starting to decode what those sensations were, and being willing to be with the uncomfortableness of the emotions, helped me realize, not only just heal myself, but also realize the secret to pretty much everything. The key to how do you become, how do you recover from any health crisis? How do you get yourself more to be seen? How do you get yourself to be heard? It all came down to understanding these emotional, energetic balls that exist in our body that needed to be healed.
Because I heard you say that you meditate every day?
Yes.
And you've been doing that for 46 years?
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, wow. That, for me, that's wow. Because this is something I don't do yet. And, well, I've done it a couple of times. Well, more than a couple of times. But then what I find is every time that my mind goes everywhere, and then maybe because of the lack of patience, I don't know. But I know, because I talk to so many people for a number of years, that people always say to me, Jackie, you need to do this. And I also think for the listeners or the viewers of this podcast, the ones that don't meditate yet, I'd like to have a little bit more, how should I say, info about, the meditation, because I think it can literally change our body and our mindset.
Yeah, well, I'm happy to share about that. I think the biggest, this is not going to be the first time I've said this, but the thing is, the biggest thing is people have this idea of what meditation is supposed to look like or be like when they go to meditate. And right there, they've set themselves up for sabotage. You won't stick with it if you have an idea of how it's supposed to look. You have to not have an idea of how it's supposed to look. You have to surrender that part of you that has a certain expectation. And because one of the wisest things my teacher taught me was, because I was having all kinds of things happen. Once I started, it was like the floodgates opened. It was a beginning of me really understanding that I was very psychically gifted, and I didn't understand it until then. And I started seeing things on people's bodies, and I started having dreams where a man I didn't know was coming to me and teaching me things at night, and then I would wake up with total recall of what happened. So the gates opened, but it was because, and then, it was like, okay, so then how do you follow that, right? Like, those are fantastic experiences. But there are also times where I would meditate and all I would hear was my thoughts. I couldn't shut my mind off. I could, and one of the benefits of meditation is understanding that you do have these thoughts going through, but they're not you. Learning how to recognize that those thoughts are their thoughts, but they're not, I don't have to identify with them. They don't define me. I'm separate from those thoughts, and recognizing what I call, and cultivating what I call, and I'm not the only person who uses this term, the witness, where you're able to take a look at what's going on in your mind and around you and in your body, even from a place of detachment, and recognize, see it differently in such a way that solutions present themselves rather than the problems, which is what people tend to focus on.
If there is one person that can motivate me to start really, meditate, I think it's you. And I mean that. It comes from my heart. It really comes from the heart. Because I went through also quite an ordeal, not so long ago. And it's there that, I started to really think about, the shift about life and seeing people in a different light, in a different perspective.
Yeah, I think it's really important for people, because the other benefit of it is, you start to, one of the premises of my work also, which I don't dive too deep into in the book, is that, we ultimately have to get to the place where we question those things that we hold as beliefs. Because the beliefs are nothing but thoughts that we've thought over and over and over again till they became a belief. And then as we recycle those beliefs, we attract more evidence that our belief is correct. And we start repeating the same cycles and problems in our lives that we've had before. So one of the benefits, and this is not just meditation, but this is just wanting to choosing to want to be more conscious about your life. What are the words that are coming out of your mouth? What are you choosing to think? What are you choosing? There are so many places where we forget that it really is a choice. I can believe that that is bad for me, or I can believe this is good for me, or I can believe that I'm going to die at a certain age, or I can choose not to believe that. I can choose to buy into the belief that it's in my family and my genetics. But guess what happens if you choose not to believe it? Like, I have a great example. My family, I'm the only one of that I know of in my family. Yeah, everybody is on blood pressure medication. My mom her mom had a stroke. She was afraid of having a heart attack. Well, and dying from a stroke. And so all of my family, my dad, everybody is on high blood pressure medication. My blood pressure, I just recently had it checked. It's great. It's textbook. Yeah, actually, she was like, it's better than textbook. So where does that come from? Because I choose not to believe that because it's my family's tradition, it doesn't have to be mine.
No, it doesn't.
I've also
Sure.
taken some, yeah, right. And I've also taken some, pragmatic steps. I mean, obviously meditation is beneficial in that regard as well, because it can help lower your cortisol, your stress levels. Okay, I made more mindful choices about the food that I eat on a daily basis or whatever. So, yeah. So I don't know how I got off on that tangent, but anyway, this is part of the benefits of meditation.
Yeah, it's good, because I think it's very important that you explain, outside of the book, what you do and what led your journey, what happened to you in your life, and the teachings that you had in your life through meditations and all the things that happen to us in our lives, and the things that we go through and that we learn from, and the people that we surround ourselves with. And the people that we coach, and the people that coach us. It's a whole journey. And I think it's very important for people to know is, how did you go from point A and then actually now to point B and writing the book? Because I think you have so much more books inside of you.
It's funny you say that, because this is book number 3. And the second one was a bestseller. Right? The first one was self-published, and my motivation was because part of my journey with the healing and the meditation was also like becoming really the learner, the student, being really
the student.
And so on the days when I wasn't sleeping during that 2 years of recovery, I was reading books on nutrition and spirituality and, channeling and all kinds of things to just help me to understand find a context for what was going on with me. I just had I had nothing to relate it to, but I did over time, because of those experiences, I got rid of the toxins around me in my household. I got rid of toxic people. I got rid of toxic traditions. For me, that was Christmas. Sorry, people, please don't be offended by that. But for me, the pressure of having to buy the perfect gift for people every year, even though I love them, but it was money I didn't really have to spend at the time. And I would put tremendous amount of energy and effort. And if they didn't like it, I would take it. It was a reflection on me personally. Like I wasn't good. Again, more evidence I wasn't good enough. So all of these things, as I started this journey of like going from really a dead stop, to trying to find my way back to the vibrant person I was, who was just, it was a process of really recognizing what wasn't serving me anymore, and being willing to go deeper, even deeper, to some of the places that other people would never go because it's just so scary for them.
Yeah.
I've learned to take fear by the shoulders and look it in the eye and say, I can choose fear, or I can choose something else. I can choose another context. I can choose, maybe even if I can't figure it out in the moment, usually I can, but I might go to a friend and say, look, and I know I'm stuck. Like, can you reflect this back to me? What do you think is going on? Or I go to one of my coaches, right? So.
Yeah, I think that's very important that we surround ourselves with the right people and that we surround ourselves with the right coaches and the right guides, because we don't have all the answers. It's impossible. We learn from each other. We learn from each other's wisdom and each other's experiences in life. And that is, for me, the gift of life.
I agree. I think that each person was put on this planet, and each person has the key to somebody else's lock that needs to be unlocked, and they don't know it, but they're carrying it. And if they just would open their mouth, and I'm not saying in a mean way, I'm saying it in a constructive and supportive way, that person that needs to hear it is probably going to hear it, or maybe they won't hear it the first time. Maybe they'll hear it the second or the third time. But
yeah, or even from someone else. But I totally 100% agree. And the way you said it, I think it's so nice. Everybody, has the key to the lock. Wow. Yeah. I've never heard anyone say it like that.
Well, thank you. Me either. It just came out.
Yeah. There is so much layers. There are many layers in what you just said. I'm gonna actually, when I publish this podcast, I'm gonna use that sentence in the description. Yeah, okay. Because I think it's beautiful, and I think you're the person, for your clients, your coachings that do unlock many treasures inside of us.
Yeah, I've been very fortunate. I love my clients, and I feel so blessed. And, it's funny, like, there's a woman, she actually just renewed her contract with me. When she came on board, I knew I could help her. Her goal was to go up through the company. She wanted to get a promotion. Okay. That's, for me, in my mind, that's an easy thing, maybe not so easy for some people, but, I felt like, because I know so much about business strategy and I've lived so many different things and experiences, I have a lot to draw from. So, within the first 3 months, we actually got her a promotion, and she got to move into a different department, which was also something she wanted. So, I remember one day we were talking, because I do at a certain point, I also, give like some feedback to just say, look at, here's where you were and look where you are, right now. This is where you came in, and just notice how much you've achieved in just this little period of time. Right. And so we were having that conversation, and she said, yeah, like, it's so amazing because, I just feel like I know I wanted this one thing, but now I just feel so much joy. And what I really see is all the possibilities that I can have. And I was like, that is the best thing you could have ever told me, because it showed me that she had let down all these walls that were holding her back and containing her from who she really has the potential to fully live. And so, I get to pull from all of these, from all the lifetime of experience. Plus, I've had tons of training in emotional intelligence, not just the healing stuff, healing, all different healing modalities, and, and business strategy work. And that I actually do a lot of that for charity. So I've helped them raise millions of dollars, just by giving strategy.
Actually, quite early in your book, you describe, the old leadership model as power through pressure, endurance, and control. What do you think that model is costing us?
Oh my God, such a good question. Yeah. So I'll start with me, because for me, it cost me my health, trying to live in the corporate, striver. We're putting pressure on ourselves. So all these health issues that people are suffering with, a lot of them, even high cholesterol, can be linked to high stress levels, right? So, high stress, high cortisol. So then there's physiological challenges, right? There's heart problems. There's brain issues. We have people with more neural issues than ever before. So that's the physical. Then there's the emotional cost. So for each person, as they feel, they don't get to operate from their inner soul, which is a place of how do I say this? They end up in a place where because they think they have to meet the expectations of whoever they believe is putting the pressure on them above them, they end up not being the most pleasant people in the world, right? They end up being sometimes very mean to try to meet their goal. So there's the very human cost of the damage of what that does when we're emotionally or verbally abusive to another human being, right? We see a lot of that in the corporate world, and a lot of people feel like they can't speak back to that when that happens to them in the workplace. We also don't see the kind of growth we could see in terms of productivity, because if people are not happy, we spend billions of dollars on research to help make people more productive. And it's all about systems and compartmentalization. It's never about how do we approach from a human standpoint. And what people are needing is that human connection. We really saw that with COVID. Look what happened for people. So many people have still not healed from that.
Yeah, a lot of people didn't heal from COVID. And it doesn't matter what part of the world you are from, but we see it and we feel it as well so deeply here in Belgium. We're having a very short break. You know me as a podcast host, but that's not the only thing that I do. I'm also a social media strategist, and I help entrepreneurs build their social media from brand to funnel, creating a very general connection with your audience that actually drives results. And if you're looking to transform how you show up on social media and want to explore working together, you'll find the link to schedule a call with me in the show notes below. And while you're there, subscribe to my newsletter, because you will get actual tips, insights on what's new on social media and AI, and that real information you can use right away. And oh, by the way, this is information I never share on any social media platform. Now let's get back to the show. And what I also think that really changed in a negative way is how people talk to each other. And whether it's in a boardroom, whether it's in politics, on the job, or even your neighbor. Well, knock on wood, I don't have any problems with my neighbors, but I see it happening around me all the time. And I think it's great that you touched on the point, that the way you talk to a person is also actually living in reaction, and the lack of self-reflection and looking at yourself, and even the empathy of looking at the other person, the way that person is, and seeing the situation as it is, and looking at that person, knowing that that person is of flesh and blood and emotions and feelings. And there is a lack of respect. And what I found in your book is that you want to integrate that a lot more into the workplace by reflecting, and know that stop living in reaction and learn how to control your feelings, and learn to reflect first before you speak.
Yeah. So one of the things is really understanding, this is the heart of emotional intelligence, right? Understanding your own reactions, being able to manage your emotions, reading understanding, or maybe not being able to read the other person a little bit, or get a sense that there might be something going on with them in the moment, and understanding that maybe it's you need to approach them differently, or you need to ask different questions so that you can create connection instead of more division with people, is super, super important. And then beyond the emotional intelligence, there's this other level, which I talk about a lot in the book, which is the energetic coherence. we're going for. So because there's different levels, we have the IQ, which is our intellectual mind. We have the EQ, which is our emotional intelligence. And we have ENQ, which is the energetic intelligence, right? Like really understanding how to read the room, so to speak, and on a different level, not just on what's being said, but body language.
So you say that the current leadership is shifting from control to connection. What does that shift look like in real life and not just only in language?
Well, one of the things is literally looking, when you come into a room, it looks more like a leader evaluating the room and looking at the body language before they even come in and sensing what isn't being said. And looking, you can tell a lot by people's, are they sitting stiff in the chair? Are their arms crossed? Are they distanced from each other? Are their smiles sincere smiles, or are they, fake smiles that are going on? And so it starts with like a leader looking at that, and then assessing the room. So if there's a certain energetic where the room doesn't feel connected, it's really taking the bull by the horns, so to speak, and addressing it directly. And instead of ignoring it and moving on with your subject, it's really doing a check-in, like, hey, everybody, we're here. I'm feeling something going on here in this room. I mean, this is just an example, right? I'm feeling something. How are you all feeling about this project? Does anybody have some thoughts coming up or some resistance to it? Or, just making people feel like it's okay to not be okay with what's going on and letting them feel safe to say it and not feel like they're going to lose their job or get a demotion or suffer consequences because they don't necessarily agree with what's coming out of the mouth of the leader or what the leader's intention is for the project.
I think it's very important to have safety on the workplace. And I don't mean, safety, but I mean to feel safe where you are. And I think there is a huge problem because it happened today that I had a conversation with someone. And he said to me, that one of the managers said, we're not going to make them smarter. And I said, what? So, yeah, I was actually flabbergasted. And, anyway, I don't think he belongs there. But we're still living in, not everybody, not all companies are like that, luckily, but we're still, having companies that are so much old school. And there's so many people like you, Carla, and I'm so happy that you stepped up and that you're writing your books. And oh, by the way, I will also put the 3 other titles of your books in the show notes with the link where they can order them, because I think this is very important. So, you also say that one of the strongest lines is that the feminine intelligence is not about gender, but energy. Mm-hmm. What do people most often misunderstand when they hear that?
Well, the difference between energetic intelligence and intuition is where people get lost, I think. Mm-hmm. And there is a distinction. And by the way, intuition is not just, I know people know this, but it's good to be reminded that intuition is not just the property of women. There are very intuitive men out there on the planet as well.
Absolutely.
And but I think just being willing to go beyond what again, it's like I was talking about in meditation. If you suspend your idea of how you think things are supposed to be, and you move from a place of what is. So without projecting your belief system or your reality or putting your glasses over the picture, I often see people hear, it makes me crazy sometimes, hear what they want to hear instead of hearing what's actually being said. right? It's the same with energy, or, yeah, it's the same with energetic intelligence. If you have an idea, for example, say you have a group that you run, okay, and you had a run-in with one of the people in the group. Now, you might think it's possible that that person has poisoned the pool by talking to other people about their experience with you, right? And you could put that belief system in your mind and project that onto the group and think that people are not communicating with you because of something that happened with that woman. Or it could be that they just happen to be all really busy at the same time right now and they can't get back to you. And it has nothing to do with whatever your situation was with that woman. But it is projecting your picture based on your bias onto the energy of the group. So that's not energetic intelligence if we're not really seeing what's going on. If we're not willing to flip the mirror and go, oh, wait a minute now, is there another way? I might be right. Maybe it is a problem, but I could also be wrong. And be willing to be that and look from that perspective and see if you can look at the energy differently than what you're thinking. Because what you believe is going to be a vibrational pull for more of the same. So if you think people are against you, for example, you're going to attract more people who are against you, or more situations that don't work for you. If you are willing to look at where that belief is coming from, and again, this goes down to the real heart of my work, which is going into, we inherit energetic, I'll call them balls, because I don't have a better way to describe it. They're like spheres that we carry in our body. We get them from our family, from our culture, from traumatic experiences, from different generations, and also gestationally from being in the womb. So those things are already triggered. They're already there in our body. And we have these situations that happen outside of us that trigger those things to get active. And when those beliefs get active, that's when we start seeing the whole cycle repeat. The pattern comes up, right? Where you keep recreating situations like I was talking about, where people are not being supported. You don't think people are supportive of you. So if you don't address the emotional ball, which is causing all the thoughts that you're generating in your mind, then you will never dissolve the problem. You have to extinguish, and you can do this by just making peace with that emotion that's in there that you've been trying to avoid. but these are emotional resonations. Is that making sense to you?
It makes a lot of sense to me.
So that's how I healed the essence of how I healed myself. And then that became this. If this works for the physical body, what else can it work for? So it's really starting to understand on a very personal level well, I'll call it the law of vibration, right? That when we have these, and I have all these terms, which I'm not doing a presentation with you now, but I call it I call it silent coding. So we start with silent coding. We have that we inherited either from the family we got in the womb, we had from generations, we had whatever. So that silent coding exists in the body. Each emotion that's in there that was not healed, that you've either inherited or you had as a result of your own experience, generates about 16,000 thoughts. You can imagine how busy the mind is, because we're not really conscious. We're only conscious of about 5%, not even 5% of our thoughts that are going through our mind. So we have to go into the emotion so that when we heal the emotion, we get rid of all the thoughts that are being generated out of that emotion. When we heal that emotion, now our body starts to change, because we're not thinking those thoughts anymore, which were the things that were causing our body to do a certain action. But it's also, besides it causing certain things in our body, it's also causing certain things certain circumstances to occur over and over again in our outer world. So it's cutting it down at the root, so to speak, so that we have a clear energetic pathway, because what the universe really wants is it wants for us to get what we want. But because we are energetically misaligned, because we haven't dealt with those deeper energetic balls, we are out of alignment. And so we're attracting things like we may be close to getting what we want. But when we really line them up, we get everything, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Absolutely. Explain a little bit more about your work and what you do with your clients, because I think that's so incredibly interesting. And the viewer and the listener is gonna love this. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, so, I have certain areas that the recurring areas that show up over and over again for people that need help. When they come to me most people are coming to me either for they want to make more money in their business, or they're trying to get up the corporate ladder and they can't figure out why it's not working. Okay, basically, it's moving forward in the business world more. Although I get people from other things too, but those are mostly my main clients. So they come in and they say, look, I'm having X, Y, and Z problems, Now, I'm listening to them and I'm looking at, okay, how much of what they're just saying right now is boundary related? When we work together, what I do is I work with them first around strategy. We're talking about strategy. And during the course of those conversations, I'm looking to see where their limitations are coming up. And so after I'm taking in information, giving them feedback on these are leadership strategies or emotional intelligence strategies, or maybe it's a mindset thing. And then we work into clearing the emotions that are causing those patterns to come up. So I might look at boundary issues. I might look at visibility issues. I might look at money mindset. These are all different buckets, I'll call them for now. But it's actually part of I call it the ultimate female framework. And it's looking at all the different aspects that a typical woman will be dealing with. And I will make note of those things as we progress. So each thing will be pulled in at the appropriate time for that client. So say they're coming in for, it's really about moving up through the ranks. Let's just say that. Okay. It's a corporate woman. She's trying to get somewhere, but she can't. Whatever is happening for whatever reason, her bosses are keeping her where she is. She can't seem to go past them. Right? Let's just use that as an example. So I actually had this with a client. She's a brilliant rocket scientist over in Europe, and she had two male bosses that were actually holding her back. Like, she had this great stuff she wanted to do, but in order for her to do her job, she needed for them to do what they were supposed to do. So they became those two men who she didn't have a problem with, but they were like roadblocks, right? So in her case, we started with, tell me about these men. Tell me about what happens in your dynamics with them, And as she began to share, I began to see where she had beliefs that were not serving her. And I could see some of that in her language too, how the language was reinforcing. So I started to coach her a little bit on her language. And I mean externally, what's coming out of your mouth, right? Her mindset, a little bit about how could she see this differently? And then it was, how do we navigate it? So giving her strategies on how to deal with these two men in a way that was respectful, but would also help her get what she wanted. And then we started to deal with the emotions underneath that were keeping her from implementing the strategies. Because we can know what we're supposed to do, but then do we do it? So the thing that stops people, and they don't realize it, they'll name it, oh, I'm so busy, I've got all this, I've got da-da-da. They'll come up with all these reasons why they're not doing something. And what it really is it's a emotion that's stuck in there that's holding them back, that's got a lot of energy. I'm just pausing to make sure this is getting through. Okay. So then once they clear that, it's interesting because what happens is they'll start to naturally, as we get rid of those emotional obstacles, they start to naturally go into a place of flow where they're just somehow, it cues them up for the right position to be in, to take them to the next level. So we might work on a lot of different emotions in there, and the emotions and the thoughts related to that. And as we clear that, then you start to see the forward momentum happen. And then we go back to the same cycle again. Okay, what's our next challenge? What are the strategies you need? Do you need emotional intelligence? Do you need energetic work? What do we need to do? And then going back and now clearing the next level of emotions. Because we've got so much stuff in us. I don't know how many years you've been on the planet, and I won't say how many years I've been on the planet, but we have a lot of stuff to get, to clear.
Yeah, I know. When they ask me, I just had my birthday the day before yesterday. And when they ask me, how old are you? And I said, oh, I'm ageless.
I like that.
Yeah, but it's true. We find so many excuses, and it's just thoughts that are there and actually not serving us.
Right. But the thoughts are coming from the emotion, and that's the problem. It's like most people can try to change the thought, and some people are successful with that. But from my perspective, it's like putting sugar on top of poop. Sorry.
What a metaphor.
It's better if you clean out the junk, you clean the pipes out, and then you put the new stuff in, because then you don't have to worry about something coming up later and sabotaging you. Because look at what happens. How many times have you seen people who, I want a new partner, I want a dream partner. Well, and then you start asking questions, and maybe they've had a marriage and that marriage didn't work and it was his fault. And then there was maybe a second marriage that didn't work and maybe that was his fault. And he's exactly the same kind of guy as the first guy that you drew in the bad marriage. And you don't understand why you're doing that. I'm going to use an example close to home. In my family, my father was previously married, and it was something we never talked about. It was like a forbidden subject. And I asked questions a few times and was very quickly shut down. So I decided that was not a place that was safe to discuss with the family. Anyway, so it was never discussed. Well, my oldest brother, my dad, his first wife was an alcoholic. And so when my oldest brother made a choice for his first wife, and I probably was the only one in the family that thought it wasn't a good idea, but anyway, he married her. And guess what? A few years later, she turned out to be an alcoholic. So he was repeating the pattern that he had absorbed from my father. So these patterns are so, it's like when people recognize that they've married somebody who's so much like their mom or so much like their dad. And they didn't think so at the time when they met the person. And so these unconscious patterns are controlling our relationships. They're controlling how we succeed or fail at work, or how much we get paid, or, our attitudes about things that, how do you know that belief is really true for you if you've never tried to experiment with anything else? If you've only accepted what you were taught the whole time you were taught it in your life, that's going to lead to a very boring life, because you're not exploring a huge amount of potential that you have inside you.
So you recognize patterns with your clients as well?
Yes, definitely patterns they can't say. Sometimes they can, sometimes they can't. And then we have other situations where I recently had the experience with another client I was working with. She had gone, she travels quite a bit. She went back to a country she hadn't been to for some time, but she was her country where she had been born. That during the time she was a young child, there was a political upheaval in that country, and her family fled to move. Obviously they were worried about their lives. Okay. She went back there because of business. She had to go do some business there for her company. About 4 or 5 days before, she started feeling not so good. She went to the country. Everything went well while she was there, but she had this really persistent pain going on in her body. And it lasted and we had a session in between, and the pain was it went down, but it was still there. And then after, in between sessions, I actually had this very clear hit about something. And so when we came back on our next conversation, I said, I feel like there's something around your childhood, and some memory of this in this particular country about something that happened. And when I was doing some muscle testing, I found that it all came back to a certain age. Now, she has no recollection of anything in particular, none at all. At that particular age, she blocked it out. But what was interesting, I was still able to work with her to clear the energy so that the pain that she was having went away.
Wow.
So,
do you give your coachings live or also online?
my coaching is online. I do it live on Zoom, and I can do it with anywhere in the world, depending on, whatever country you're in. I have clients in, different places. We just have to find, I have certain days of the week. I coach Tuesdays and Thursdays, and then, it's a certain time frame, that I do.
Yeah.
But it seems to work really well. And I think the results are just so impressive. I get so excited when I think about what's happened for, not just the rocket scientist. I didn't say, so the end of her story, I should say that. So, she was the one who had the two men that were blocking her. We worked through all that. We worked through some other stuff. She ended up getting promoted. So she got her own department. She got out from under those two men, and then she got given her own division.
Wow.
So we exceeded what her goal was. Yes.
That's incredible.
That is not uncommon.
That's so beautiful to hear.
Well, I think another great story is, it's always good to tell people what happened, without giving away the details of anything confidential. As a coach, I also believe that confidentiality is king. So whatever anybody ever says to me is never ever shared specifically. But a really, really great story too. This was a fun one for me. So this woman, I actually met her. She came to me through a podcast. She became a client through a podcast. And, we had our first call, and she said, at the end of the call, she said, she was worried about, her money. And so it was this, cause it costs money to do that, to coach with me. And I said, would it be okay if I coach you through the money? I'm not going to try to make you sign up, but just try to help you, because maybe there's a limitation. So we did some work on that, and she felt better at the end, but she didn't move forward. And I said, that's fine. And I wished her well. And, as far as I was concerned, it was like, okay, gone. Right? And about 2 months later, she sent me a letter saying, okay, I've been thinking about you nonstop pretty much since that session, and I'm ready to sign up now. And I said, wow, okay, great. So I loved this one because it was fun. She came to me really because she didn't know what direction she wanted to move in her life. She was caught between a part of her who was very qualified to be a teacher, to continue with that, or go pursue a nursing. She had just gotten recently trained as a nurse. And her belief was that she couldn't make the money doing the teaching as good as she would make doing the nursing. But when she thought about the nursing, the first job she would have had to take, she felt like she was going to have to clean bedpans, and she didn't want to do that. It wasn't what her idea was. So I did some work with her to get her clear on what her true passion was. And, which turned out that, I said, which one do you want? It's kind of, after we went through all of that, it's like, well, okay, so now that you're clear, what do you really want to do? She goes, yeah, I want to pursue the teaching. I said, okay, great. So now it was dealing with her beliefs about compensation and all of that. Right. So anyway, she got offered after we'd been working together, she got offered a very sorry. And one other thing was, she happened to mention that she was getting migraine headaches on a regular basis. And I said, oh, okay, well, that's good for me. I have an intake form, but she hadn't put anything on the form. I said, well, thank you for that. And she goes, as a matter of fact, I have one today, and I almost canceled. I'm feeling really, really bad. And I said, okay. So, I did some work with her. We cleared the migraine. the migraine almost completely disappeared. Like she gets them now very, very rarely. Like it's not a weekly thing. It was a weekly thing before. So that was the first victory. Then she got offered this job at a private school out of the blue. And they offered her some money. And because I gave her some strategy suggestions, she went back to them and asked for more money, which was, a challenge to her mind about what she could or couldn't get. And they gave it to her. And so she got more money than she thought was possible. And within, I think it was about 3 months in, they started to promote her to take over, create this new program for the school. So she was another great example of, it's all about working with energy and clarity, right? And getting them lined up. So, a very happily ever after story for her. So, and I love those. It makes me feel like I'm doing something really good on the planet. And I am, when I see these things happen for people, I think I am more invested in their success sometimes than they are.
What is the most that you want people to get out of your book?
There's another layer that they don't necessarily see or recognize, but they do see. They've just never had anybody pull it to their attention. And I think once you read the book, things become more obvious. Like, oh, yeah, I kind of knew that, but you never had words for it. I want people to have that experience.
Yeah, I hope so too. Absolutely. Carla, where can they find your book?
Well, they have to go to Amazon and get it there. You could also, that's the best thing. And in the bottom of the book, if you look across the bottom of the pages, there's a link to the feminineleadership.com at the very bottom of each page.
Yeah.
And you can go there and get a free leadership assessment about what's your leadership style. So we email you that. You can fill it in and score yourself. And you don't have to come back to me, but it's a great way to learn, about where you're at. The other thing is there is an opportunity after you do the assessment to book a session with me, a leadership session. And those are complimentary. But you do have to apply. And if your application doesn't quite, line up, then I'll probably send you some other resources. But I always love to talk to people and see how I can support them.
I've got 2 questions. What do you want women to get out of this conversation? And then my second question is, what do you want men to take out of this conversation?
Well, I want women to walk away recognizing that they don't have to shrink. They don't have to keep turning themselves into pretzels. There's nothing wrong with you. It's the fact that you're trying to fit into a world, a design in the business world that doesn't match your physiology, and that learning how to adapt is going to be the thing. We're always the adaptable ones, unfortunately, but recognizing that there's nothing wrong with you because you have to adapt, and seeing yourself a little bit differently as instead of seeing yourself as maybe less than, recognizing that that's not the problem. The problem is the system itself. It's contaminated. And your question about men, for men, hopefully recognizing where you might be holding on to biases yourself, and also being willing to open up your feminine energy and allowing that to help you reshape your organization from a place that is more human based, more based on more human connection. And that's not to say, there are men out there who are already doing this. So I just want to give kudos to those who are. And there are women out there who are already doing this. But what we need to do is make it a universal thing, because as a standard for the universe, for the globe, what will start to shift, hopefully, is another way of creating more peace on the planet. If we can start to agree in boardrooms, then the effect of that, the impact from a planetary standpoint, is going to be tremendous. From a sustainability standpoint, all the things that, recognizing that we really are, there's these imaginary lines called borders around the world, right? There's these imaginary things called countries, but the truth is, even though they seem separate, they're not. We all are in the same pond. And if we don't learn how to play nice in the pond, we're going to completely destroy it. So I think that's what I'd like people to take away. And also to recognize that, look, if you want help, you want guidance on this, don't stop with my book. Reach out to me. I come in and I do corporate trainings. I can help train your team or help train you as a leader to be more effective and better and implement some strategies that are going to be not just good for your company internally, but for your clients as well. And also help you increase your productivity, because the minute we start to allow for those contributions from the people that we haven't been listening to, those are probably the exact advances that we need in order to make you more productive and help your company reach the levels that you're looking for.
Wow, what a beautiful ending. This is a really beautiful ending. Wow. Wherever I put something, I'm going to put that ending here because it's really beautiful.
Thank you.
If you would be able now to write a letter to yourself, your 25-year-old self, what would you write?
Wow. I think the biggest thing would be to really understand that all those judgments that I had about myself, my weight, my appearance, my whatever it was, going back, how I was accepted or not accepted, or how people treated me, to really understand that, I had the power to walk through that. I had the power to walk through my own fear. I had that I could have encouraged myself in places where I was discouraged. Sometimes I still find myself like reminiscing, because I did have at a pretty young age, I had a pretty good promise as a singer. And I still sing, but, I was never encouraged. The entertainment industry was very discouraged in my house. And there's whole reasons for that, because my aunt was in entertainment. My mom had been, so they didn't want me to go through the same things they had been through. And now I really wish that, at that time, I had been at least just given a chance to, explore it further and see if it was maybe a good path for me. In the end, I still feel like I'm on the right path. I love what I do. I'm passionate about helping my people. It gives me purpose. It wakes me up and makes my day, and when I get letters of gratitude from clients that I've helped, I'm still really moved by it. It's never old, because it's like giving the gift of life to somebody, really.
Yeah. That's what I feel that you absolutely do. Give the gift of life. Thank you, Carla, for this wonderful conversation. It's a very, very meaningful podcast for many viewers and watchers. Absolutely. And we're gonna do everything that we can to really make this go maybe, possibly viral. That would be great, because people need you.
Thank you. That would be great. Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah, me too.
So just for your viewers or listeners, from time to time, I offer free webinars on Eventbrite. So you can find me under Carla Sridevi Cohen, which is the name you see on the screen. And just become a follower, and then you'll see when I announce the next webinar. And also you can go to my website and get at least be on my email list. I don't send out many emails unless I'm going to do something specific, like offer a class or there's some kind of something special going on. Other than that, you don't hear from me too much, but if you need me, you'll know how to reach me. So
yeah, I will put everything in the show notes below this podcast.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.